So, what happens when your personal freedom smacks right into someone else's deeply held beliefs? It's a super modern problem, right? Well, today we're diving into an ancient text that gives us a fascinating guide for exactly that tension, the clash between what you can do and what love compels you to do.
Okay, just imagine that for a second. Your right to enjoy a meal versus your friend's conscience. It's messy, it's awkward, and it's a real-world problem. And believe it or not, this exact dilemma is at the very heart of a 2,000-year-old letter, 1 Corinthians chapter 8. So let's break it down.
All right, so the whole discussion kicks off by pitting two huge ideas against each other. On one side, you've got knowledge, and on the other, you've got love. This is the central conflict. So verse 1 gets right to it. Paul, the author, starts by saying, knowledge puffs up. You can just picture it, right? Like a balloon being filled with hot air. It gets bigger and looks impressive, but it's mostly empty and super fragile. But then he says, love edifies. That's a fancy word for builds up. So think of love as laying solid bricks, one by one, building something strong, sturdy, and real. This right here really sets the stage for the whole chapter. It's asking a fundamental question. Is your life about inflating your own ego, your own balloon, or is it about building up the people around you with solid bricks of love? Verse 2 takes this idea even deeper. It says, if you think you know it all, you really don't know anything yet. Just imagine someone proudly holding up a single drop of water and claiming they understand the entire ocean. It's kind of like that. Paul is saying that real wisdom always starts with humility, with recognizing how much you don't know. And then verse 3 totally flips the script. See, the ultimate goal isn't just to know a bunch of facts about God. The real prize is to be known by God. It's a shift from just head knowledge to a real relationship. It's like moving from studying a person's biography to having them shine a warm spotlight on you, knowing you personally. Okay, so with this foundation of love over knowledge in place, Paul gets practical. He applies it to this very specific, real-life problem they had in the city of Corinth, eating meat that had been sacrificed to idols. Let's see how this plays out. Now, in verse 4, Paul actually agrees with the knowledgeable people on a key point. He says, look, we all know an idol is, well, nothing. It has no real power. Just picture a huge, imposing stone statue that, in an instant, crumbles into dust and just blows away in the wind. That's an idol. He continues in verse 5, acknowledging that, yeah, sure, there are tons of so-called gods out there. People worship all sorts of things. The visual here is like looking up at a vast galaxy filled with countless tiny, flickering stars. They're there, technically, but they're just little specks of light with no real power or warmth. Then verse 6 brings it all home with this incredible image. In that same galaxy of flickering stars, a single brilliant sun suddenly appears, completely outshining everything else. That's God the Father. And then a solid bridge made of pure light, that's Jesus Christ, connects everything in creation back to that one true, powerful source. Which leads to the totally logical question, right? If the idols are just powerless rocks and the meat is just meat, then what's the big deal? Why is this even an argument? And this is where the whole chapter makes a crucial pivot from pure theology to human psychology. Because the problem wasn't the meat. It was never about the meat. The problem was about people's conscience. For some people, especially those who had just come out of that idol-worshipping culture, their past experiences made it impossible to separate the food from the idol. Verse 7 explains this perfectly. It says, not everyone has this knowledge. For some, when they eat that meat, their mind can't let go of the idol. It's like they see the food, but it's covered by the dark, shadowy hand of that false god. And when they eat it, their conscience, which Paul describes as weak or fragile like glass, gets a visible crack. It's defiled. It feels like a deep betrayal of their newfound faith. Now, to be super clear, Paul states in verse 8 that the food itself is totally neutral. Just picture a perfectly balanced scale. You can put a piece of meat on the left side or the right side. The scale doesn't budge. It doesn't tip at all. In God's eyes, what you eat or don't eat doesn't make you better or worse. So, here's the trap. If you have the knowledge that the food is fine, you are technically free to eat it. But, and this is a huge but, Paul is about to warn us that your freedom can actually become a weapon that seriously hurts someone else. Verse 9 gives us this really stark warning. He says to be careful that your freedom, your liberty, doesn't become a stumbling block. The image is so clear. It's like you're confidently walking down the street, totally within your rights, but you've carelessly left a tripwire stretched across the sidewalk behind you. And someone else who's a bit more hesitant is about to walk right into it and fall flat on their face. And let's be really clear what a stumbling block is. It's not just about annoying someone or offending their personal taste. No, it's about using your freedom in a way that actually causes another person to get tripped up and do something that violates their own conscience, causing them real spiritual damage. Paul then paints us a picture in verse 10. Imagine you, the person with knowledge, sitting in an old temple eating some of this meat. For you, no big deal, but across the room, your friend with a weak conscience is watching. They're torn up inside. Seeing you eat so freely doesn't strengthen them, it emboldens them. It's like peer pressure. They take a bite, even though their heart is screaming, this is wrong, and in doing so, they violate their own conscience. Whoa. And then in verse 11, the stakes are suddenly raised to life and death. Your knowledge has now become the reason this weak brother, this person Christ died for, is in spiritual danger. You can almost see them falling backward into a dark pit, and as they fall, the shadow of a giant cross passes over them. It's a shocking reminder of the incredible price that was paid for that very person you just tripped up. And if you thought it couldn't get more serious, verse 12 makes the final devastating connection. When you sin against your brothers and sisters, when you wound their fragile conscience, you are in fact sinning directly against Christ himself. It's an absolutely chilling visual. An arrow labeled "wounding a brother's conscience" flies right past your friend and strikes a glowing silhouette of Christ. The connection is direct. So after this whole intense journey through knowledge, freedom, idols, and stumbling blocks, we finally arrive at the conclusion. And the final decision, the guiding principle, isn't based on your rights or what you know. It's based entirely on love. And verse 13 is the powerful, decisive finale. Paul lays it all on the line. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never again eat meat. Period. The visual is simple but so strong. A hand firmly but gently pushing a plate of meat away. The focus isn't on the food being given up, it's on the protected friend in the background. The choice is crystal clear. The person is always more important than the plate. Love makes the final call. And that leaves us with this final, challenging question for ourselves. What's the meat in our lives today? What are the things we have every right to do, or say, or enjoy, but that might be a tripwire, a stumbling block, for someone else that we are called to love? Well, according to this ancient guide, it's love, not our rights, that has to get the final say.